thought we could talk about the basics of the moon phases. This is not the advanced edition where you have 8 phases that you're trying to keep track of. This is just the 4. Often this is the ones you're going to find most often in the beginner books and intermediate books. Sometimes they'll go a little bit more, but for the most part, you got your traditional 4. So to begin with, we have the new or the dark moon. A lot of times your calendars will actually show this. It's kind of a hit or miss. A lot of times they have it, but I'd say it's like 50%. Most of the time, if they don't, they just show the full moon. And even then, some calendars don't show any of it, but if it does show the moon phases, a lot of times it's going to show the full and the new moon. The new moon is going to be a little black dot. This is, of course, when the moon is not illuminated by the sun, which means that we don't really see it in the sky. Magically, what to use this time for. This is great for banishings or ending of stuff, but it's also a great time for beginnings, kind of a double-edged side of a spell if you need to end something, bring in something new in its place. A lot of people love to include this as the time to start new projects, and it's also a really good time to do any form of divination. So a couple examples of spells that you could do include any spell to remove a bad habit, such as if you want to quit smoking, this is a great time to do any spell work to do that. You can also start a new project or bless a new project. Obviously for myself, this would be a great time to bless a new project, like writing a new book. Then we have the waxing phase. So this is when the moon is gradually creeping towards full. Now, if you wanted to complicate it, there are different phases within that, again, the more advanced version includes, but again, we're keeping this simple. So once we can start to see the moon in the sky, this is when we start to do this type of magic. And this is going to go all the way up until the moon is full. You don't have to start your projects on the new moon, but if you do, this is spells to give you momentum, encouragement, motivation. It's also good for productivity, especially if you are working in any type of job. Eventually you probably will need some kind of spell to help with that. Or if you want to be more productive around your house or whatever projects you're working on, whether it's creative or just taking care of your house and your apartment or whatever. It's also good for health and also for love. Again, adding momentum to a project. So we'll go with my example from before. I'm writing books. So I would bless my new project, kind of have a vague idea of what I'm going to do starting at the new moon. And during the waxing moon, I would spend this time feeding a spell for motivation. So this would be to help with the planning process, with the outlining, maybe starting on a first draft. Those kinds of spells and that kind of intention would be for the waxing moon. It's also a good time to attract or reinforce your relationships. This could be friendship or romantic. Then we have the full moon. Like I said with the new moon, this is the one you're usually going to be able to find on your regular calendars. Most of the time it's printed on there, just a little dot that's not filled in, just a little circle. You can use apps to find the exact moment the moon is full. Honestly, I have yet to really notice a difference. I just stick with what my calendar says and it works just fine. You don't need to wait till it is the exact second that the moon is full. Honestly, I usually use a 3-day grace period where it's the day before, day of, and the day after to count as the full moon. Some witches argue that it needs to be just on that day, but I kind of am in the opinion that life happens. If you do it within those 3 days, you're fine. Now, the full moon is for any magic, really. Anything that you want to do magically, if you only want to do 1 spell a month, this is the time to do it. This is also for your big spells. If you are following along with some of the books that I've talked about, some spells are really simple and easy, and some are really complicated, and they have a lot to them. This is a great time to do the big spells. And also, big spells can mean for long-term stuff as well. Whereas, for example, if you caught a cold or your partner is sick, and you do a healing spell, it's pretty short-lived. It's to get through that particular illness. Whereas a big spell might be a career change, where you're job searching and you're looking to change all aspects of your career life. This would be a good time to do that kind of a spell. Or if you're going to buy a house or something like that. Going along with my example, this is when I would bless my revision process as I'm writing a book. This is the spell work to now get into the nitty-gritty and to bless the fact that I've hit the end. And again, it's a long-term project. Writing a book is not easy to do. And it's also a good time for divination. So again, some examples of spell work. I mentioned this earlier. This is a great time for big life events, such as buying a house or a car. It's also a good time to do a reading for the upcoming month. And then lastly, we have the waning phase of the moon. So this is from the full moon back to the dark moon, or the new moon, whatever you want to call it. And again, in more advanced, you can argue the difference between the two, but for now we're keeping it very simple. So the waning moon is as the moon is slowly decreasing in the sky. Typically, we're going to be doing any kind of banishing work. This includes like removal of any kind or just lessening stuff. You might not be able to completely get rid of something, but work on minimizing it over time. And it's also a great time to work on introspection. So examples, especially for banishing and lessening, let's say you've got some debt. Now, the banishing side of it is you are going to banish a particular debt. One card that you want to pay off, one loan or whatever, that you want to just work on paying that thing off. Opposite end on the lessening spectrum, it's more of like applying the snowball effect that's talked about in finance, where you're working on being able to pay off one thing so that you can pay off and use that money that you were paying the one to go towards the second so that it creates the snowball effect of being able to pay your debts. It's the lessening of the amount of debt you have, especially with prices increasing so much right now. Like, it's insane, but it's a lessening process of spells to slowly get your debt under control. And again, it's also great for looking within, so this is a great time to work on any shadow work. Like I said, this is just the beginning level of looking at the moon phases. I hope this has been helpful and gave you some ideas of spell work and stuff that you can work on. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.